Hi, I'm Marie Gervacio, and this is Russell Perkins, and we are still standing with Ukraine. And we have back with us Kenneth Glover, who is also still standing with Ukraine. And I want to thank you, Kenneth, for the lovely flowers that you brought back and gave to me. They're so pretty. And I'll be able to use them at the craft fairs, like the one coming up this weekend. And yeah, this should be fun to be a nice piece to talk about at those fairs. And I see you've got all kinds of other things to show this time. Some of them a little bit not as
pleasant
as the last time. Some nice patches, but those kind of also have an interesting meaning, let's put it that way. So I want to, I guess, give a little bit about us. If you're just watching us for the first time, Russell and we have been helping Ukraine for over 3 years, and mainly doing it in the form of craft fairs, raising funds that way. I've helped to set up a few fundraisers where there's art workshops, because a lot of the things that we end up selling is my artwork at these arts and craft fairs. And Russell even paints stones and does the diamond dot thing. And that's kind of the fun part of what we do. But yeah, there's also a lot of work involved in lugging things back and forth. But it's all worth it in the end, because people appreciate the fact that we're still standing with Ukraine. Yeah. And if you would like to know more, keep watching us here on the channel, and like and subscribe. And that little bell will also tell you when we're putting something new up. So, Kenneth, give us a little bit about what you've been doing for the past 3 years since the full-scale invasion.
Yeah, we were never, Joseph and I, who do this work together, people say, what's your organization? And Joseph and Kenneth. And so the two of us have been traveling to Ukraine, making contacts. There's been miraculous contacts we never could have imagined, like a message that came through after our first trip from a businessman in Kyiv who was part of the Ukrainian Hungarian community. He took an interest in Joseph, who's Hungarian, and reached out and soon learned that we were planning to come back to Ukraine. And he said, let me take care of all of your plans when you're in Kyiv. And he drove us miles away from Kyiv to the villages and the towns that were occupied in the first days of the all-out war. He introduced me and Joseph to locals who then told us their stories of occupation. And we started to collect those stories, and he brought us to his wife's school. She's a vice principal, School Building 196. Joseph had decided in the lead up to the trip, meeting him for the first time, we were going to make a donation to a special class they had at the school, which was 3D printing, highly technological. And while we were there, we were toured around the bomb shelter of the school, where hundreds of students have minutes to get down during a bombing. And we saw that the shelter was in poor condition. It was dirty, looked like any bomb shelter in a school we have today, left over from the 60s, full of dirt and dust and broken furniture. And we asked about the work that they were hoping to do in that shelter. And we asked, how much would it really cost to do that work? We were curious. And he quoted the price. It was modest, but it was a little less than $1,000 because they would provide the labor. And we gave that money over, and they fixed that shelter up. And I said, well, it's a little thing. And he says, not a little thing. It helps hundreds of students, and it serves the entire community at night when the school is closed. It's around the local buildings, apartment buildings, that's their shelter. And he went on to say that on a previous trip, but after the work had been done, completed, we visited, and he had the good news that that one school, School Building 196, and 2 others in Kyiv were actually qualified to hold final exams because they met 3 criteria, and one of which was a good, usable bomb shelter that was excellent for if the classes had to go underground for the final exams. And so because of our modest donation and the hard work that the staff put into improving that shelter, more students were able to have their final exams past June. And so this was just one of the many things that we went to Ukraine not expecting to do. But when an opportunity falls in front of you and you can meet the need, and it's an honest need, it's worthy.
That was a worthy thing you did for them, all right.
Yeah, we do that with the help of, we don't go out to dinner, we don't go to movies, we don't go to bars, we don't drink, but we take that discretionary income and we put it towards something better. And then we have, like you, we have our people who donate to us, and with a modest amount, we're able to do whatever the need, wherever we find it, we can do as much as we can.
Yeah, isn't it nice that other people, when they hear, especially Russell, he likes to write op-eds and letters to the editor, and some people hear about us that way, but other people at fairs and other places come up and donate things. So there's a lot of help out there, and people still standing with Ukraine. We see that every time we do a thing out in public.
I wonder if we've seen that bomb shelter on the television news here in America, because we've seen 6 o'clock news programs in Kiev, where they're showing bomb shelters. And some of the ones that we saw looked pretty nice.
Did you see one with bean bags?
I don't remember.
They got bean bags.
Yeah, they got bean bags. They put foam flooring on one of the rooms, so the very small children, when they're in the shelter, they're going to crawl around, but they don't need to crawl around on their knees in cement.
Oh, that's nice.
And they painted the walls bright colors. They improved the air circulation, the induction of fresh air.
Oh, that's good.
And it was tested. A bomb of some sort, I think it was a missile, came down within 350 meters of the school. And so it's a very necessary bomb shelter.
Schools.
They even have handicapped access to the shelter.
Oh, wow.
They have a device that can bring a wheelchair down.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
now you say that shelter and others are also used by adult civilians during the nightly air raids?
Yeah, at night the school has to have an adequate shelter for the neighborhood. So essentially it is serving any number of 20,000 people that live in the immediate area.
Wow.
And so when I said, well, it's helping a few people, he said to me, Kenneth, it's helping 10,000 people.
That's a big shelter.
Well, they can't fit them all at once, but any number of 10,000 people might choose to use that shelter as opposed to being in their building. One of the things the Russians do when they strike a building with precision, they usually, and we kept on noticing this, the center of apartment buildings are taken out where the stairwells are. And we stayed in a hotel in Odessa, the Bristol Hotel. It was struck, not while we were there, but when I was looking at pictures of the Bristol after it was struck, I noticed it was penetrated above the concierge and above the shelter.
Wow.
And so they must have got intelligence as to where the shelter it was, and they intentionally bombed the part of the hotel where people would be taking shelter.
Ugh.
So it's
awful.
not accidental, it's precision bombing.
And in the last show, I had promised that you would tell us a little bit about what happened when you went to Kyiv last time.
Yeah, I'll do that. So we went to Kyiv on this trip for a weekend, the entirety of the weekend plus a Monday, leaving on perhaps Tuesday. And we went there, we had a loose plan, but we were going to see our friend Tibor Tompa, the head of the Ukrainian-Hungarian community there. It's been a tremendous help. We were hoping to see another friend, Roland Sieber, who is a member of President Zelensky's political party. We were unable to do that this time, but we kept in contact with him. He's very busy, as are we. In fact, he might have had an award for us, some sort of governmental award, which he promised when we saw him next he had for us, some honor. But I have to be honest, we were too busy doing the work to try to arrange a time to get a medal or a certificate. And they can sit on his desk until we see him in person. But we weren't going to give up our work. So we were in Kyiv, and we stayed at the Hotel Ukraine, which is above the Maidan Square, which is a focal point of Kyiv with its column with an angel on top, where they have soldiers' funerals, and where people have traditionally protested as well. And there was one protest, I think it was 2014, where over 100 people were killed by secret services as they were stretching and trying to get their freedom. I know people who were there too. And they all got a telephone message on their phone saying, "We know where you are, go home now before there's any trouble." It was a very long text, and everyone who were there got a blast message from the government. It was very Russian orientated at that time. And so they're using technology to really threaten people. But those people threw that government off. So we're in Kyiv at this hotel. And there's a lot of Norwegians that were there from 2 Norwegian aid organizations. And we got to meet them. It felt like half the population of Norway was at the hotel. I have to say the Norwegians, they drink very heavy. I'll acknowledge that without getting too much into detail. But we met a number of other volunteers, including Ed from Ed's Friends that organizes from Texas groups of surgeons who are facial cranial reconstruction of soldiers and replacement of eyes as well, with very finely made sort of synthetic eyes. So we're meeting all these people, and they were very inspiring for us, but it was very strange to hear them saying that they were inspired by us, but so be it. So we're in Kyiv, and on 2 particular nights at the hotel, Kyiv was attacked, and not just threatened. The bombs were coming down, and we were on the 9th floor of our hotel. And now people listening to this are going to say, "Why didn't you go into the shelter? You do know better, right?" And that's a question that could be asked.
Well, and this was after the peace treaties were being started. And
Well, yeah. Yes, this was Putin's answer to considering peace, was to bomb Kyiv harder. And this is a time when Patriot missile systems were locked up at the Polish border because the U.S. government didn't want to permit them into Ukraine. That's changed a little bit, right? So Friday night was, I thought it was extraordinary because I was in Odessa and I heard ballistic missiles and drones and things like this, but it's different from seeing fireballs rise up above the city and hearing booms and explosions and seeing them, and that was Friday night. And then there was a couple of nights of all alarms which I was spending time with the Norwegians in the hotel lobby, drinking beer, maybe.
Oh.
And then, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. And then I don't drink at home, but it seems to be the language of love for the Norwegians. And then Monday night came along, and I couldn't believe it. It made Friday look like nothing. And people died on Friday night. And I saw those explosions that killed people from my 9th floor window. We happened to be in a bubble of protection near the presidential offices, so the likelihood the hotel would be struck wasn't zero, but it wasn't that high. And so on Monday night, I witnessed from the hotel, I'll be careful not to over-describe it, so why is there no video that I'm showing of it? Because video can be seen by the Russians and help them target the defenders who are defending Kyiv. They're sending up into the sky tracers, hundreds of feet up into the sky, thousands of ordnances, and they streak across the sky like a red perforated line, and there's an arch, and they sometimes connect another arch, and they're trying to, with searchlights, find the giant Shahed drones that have enough explosive to destroy 2,000 cars, rip apart a building. And they sound like lawnmowers. They sound like lawnmowers. From 12 to 4, there would be moments, a couple of minutes of silence, and then 5 Shahed drones coming in at once. And you could hear them cutting through the dark sky, and I wouldn't know they were there but for their sound. And you can hear where they're traveling, and at times they were traveling towards a hotel. And the tracers would go up, and at my first inkling they had got a Shahed was there was a fire burning in the sky, high up in the sky. And because the motor was still running, it didn't fall directly to the earth, but it slowly spiraled like a whirligig from a tree in the fall on fire and would disappear. I'm watching behind a row of buildings within my sight, and then followed by either a very dull thud or a very large fireball. And I'm not Catholic, but I went to Catholic school, and I felt a very strange sense that, very voyeuristic, watching what maybe I'd only seen in a Hollywood type action movie. It was unbelievable, but Hollywood could do as well with special effects. And I felt like maybe this is wrong what I'm doing, but I would say the Hail Mary when I heard the engine cut off of the Shahed, because I knew that about 20 seconds later people were going to be dead. And I said the Hail Mary throughout the night at times when I would hear them cut off. I stood in the window. Joseph slept in his bed. He did say it was hard to sleep. I says, well, it won't help if I shut the window. And the hillside was on fire, part of the city. It was a 360-degree attack. There was heavy shrapnel landing on the roofs around the hotel. It was like someone was in a helicopter and dumped hundreds of pounds of gravel out. You couldn't see it, but you could hear it hitting the metal roofs. And at 2 points, a percussion wave passed through the window. It didn't move my hair, but it rearranges every single cell in your body and organ. Wow. It's like a massage that passes through your body. Car alarms are going off. And this was what it was like all night, watching the defenders and thinking to myself, for their sake, I should be in the shelter. But for the sake of people at home, I need to see this tonight so I can tell people what it's like to be bombed during what other people are calling peace.
Oh, boy. I don't know. That just gives me all kinds of... Ugh.
Yeah.
And that's being repeated pretty much every night, right? In one city or more than one city?
That Monday night is the second worst bombing of Kyiv since the war began. And since we have returned in June, from June, this trip, that bombing has been overshadowed.
Oh, wow.
And so it was, I looked from my
That's
view,
right.
360-degree attack, and it was over us, and there were at the same time missiles coming in, and at one point I heard a rumbling explosion that lasted for 15 to 20 seconds. And they were trying to target the very soldiers that were firing up the tracers, which is why I didn't, there's not going to be any video for people to see, because the video in very real time helps the Russians
Yeah, no.
and would make me less safe in that
Right.
hotel.
Yeah.
And I can't help but
Yeah.
mention a story I read today. Should we mention the date? I don't know what the date is. This is being recorded.
Today is the 5th.
This is being recorded on August 5th, and I just read that Steve Witkoff, President Trump's special envoy to Ukraine, is meeting in Russia. I think he's meeting with Russians to give them one last chance at coming to the peace table. So it doesn't sound like there's much chance of a great deal of success coming out of that, based on what you've seen and felt over there.
Russia's very identity requires that they own all of Ukraine. Also, there's been recently Hungarian spies were captured in western Ukraine, in Zakarpattia,
Oh, wow.
and 2 of them are Ukrainian, but they were working for the Hungarians to see what are locals feeling in western Ukraine, Zakarpattia, that oblast, and some others near Hungary, if people would be amenable to being annexed by Hungary when Russia cuts it up. And those were arrested and jailed. I think they faced life imprisonment. And Hungary's response to that was to put billboards up, and on the billboards is a friend who takes a great deal of interest in us, Roland Sieber, who's a politician, and his face is up on these poster boards in Hungary, in Budapest, as well as the leader of the European Union, and one other man whose position I'm not remembering. But it feels kind of good when we are leaving Ukraine and we're in Budapest, Hungary, a country that's taken a decisive wrong turn, to see someone we have spent personal time with up on a billboard as public enemy number 1. And so it makes us feel like we're connected with the right people. So we've had some cooperation there with people in the government. Ukrainian government is aware of our presence. They reached out to us in a prior trip. Representative in Uzhgorod of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it was a friendly meeting over lunch. Something funny happened during the meeting. We presented a U.S. flag that we had received from our Senator Warren in Massachusetts. You can order a U.S. flag flown over the Capitol. And the Ivan Lukacek, that was close enough, he apologized. He was a representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for not having something to give back to us. And I had been given a few days before a medal by our interpreter, Andriana, our Parakladatch interpreter. I had played a 5-minute game of ping pong with her in a factory rec room that we were visiting, a clothing factory, learning about their resilience at the beginning of the war, when the war nearly put them out of business, but they stayed in business to keep over 400 people employed. And I said, I've already received the highest honor that any civilian can receive from a foreign country in Ukraine. He says, what's that? And much to the consternation to some of the people around the table who are a little bit more bureaucratically minded than me, who, by the way, were not looking directly in the eyes of the foreign minister's representative because they were a bit nervous, I whipped this medal out of my shirt and I said, this. And he leaned across the table very seriously. He says, "Are those ping pong paddles?" I says, "They are. I got it for playing 5 minutes of ping pong." And he began to laugh, and then his deputy began to laugh, and I began to laugh, and I says, "I'm that American. I'm that American who's going to break all the rules, mortify people in certain positions." But the person that I needed to not mortify thought it was funny. A few people got up and left the table a few minutes later because they didn't know how to handle this anymore. But I had a birthday party a few days later, and that minister came to my birthday party, so I guess I didn't offend him. And this is my greatest medal I've ever received.
Ping pong.
Keeps me humble, right?
I used to play ping pong, but I never got a medal like that for it.
I'm not that good.
I never played ping pong in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting down to about 5 minutes to go, I think.
Yeah.
But I had a question I was going to ask you, and it just left my head. What are your plans for the future? You plan to go back, right? I assume.
Yes, we're going back in November. Hardly. We're starting to get a few promises of some money to continue the social work that we do. And we've built our itinerary. We're going to be going, I won't get into detail, but we will be traveling within a short distance of the front lines on slightly a social visit with a new connection. But like usual, we don't know where we're going and how we're going there, and that makes it a little bit safer in case one of us are talking in social media, on Messenger. We think it's private, and it really isn't. At this point, I don't expect anything I do on my phone is private, because when we've been in Ukraine, it was different this time. Our previous experiences, and a humanitarian aid worker told me this, and he says, "No, Ken, not your imagination. I get 2 calls every night from a Polish exchange on my phone. It might be computer generated, but what it is the Russians checking on our location nightly. So every time we're in a new place, we get 2 calls back to back. No one ever speaks, always from a Polish exchange. And in fact, our friend says it's how they target. He says, "You're very lucky they're not actually speaking to you and threatening you." But so when we go to the east, my phone is going into a Faraday bag because I don't want my phone to be the reason the vehicle we're traveling in gets targeted. Because the Ukrainian government knows we're there, but then so does the Russians. And we're targets. But we're going to go, and we're going to do that. We're going to do more work with the children and the people with disabilities and the elderly. And we're going to return a visit, make more meals for the soldiers, art supplies for kids, psychological programs for kids recuperating from the trauma of war. We just have our hands in a lot of different pots, because if we see something good and we want to support it, we support it, but we never give money to strangers or people we don't meet. We only give money when people can show us in person the work they are doing. Yeah.
I think that's why we kind of settled with Dobro New England, because we do these mothers that put together this 501c3 nonprofit.
Yeah.
They have what they call, is it skin in the game?
Yes. We've carried water for
from
them.
Ukraine, and they have family and friends over there, and they don't take a salary, we don't take a salary, and the most bang for our buck. It's like it will, all the money gets turned into something good.
Dobro usually fills up my suitcase. On one trip, I chucked out almost all of my clothing because I had no room for my clothing because it was full of Dobro, very important things. Yeah. And so I went to thrift stores there and bought the weirdest set of clothing on that trip. But I said, clothing doesn't matter. Yeah. These medical supplies, they matter. So
Yeah, tourniquets, oh my goodness.
I'm hoping to have more of my own clothes this trip, but I'll take whatever Svetlana gives me. And then we bring back
Yay.
stuff for their sales. So,
Yay. And I think we
yeah,
got
I think, well,
we're pretty good.
yeah.
Wanted to know about these little spoons.
Oh, so I have a set of 6 silver spoons, and they were made in Marblehead, Massachusetts in this 1762, and they're made by a man named Thomas Grant. And Thomas Grant was a silversmith, and he owned a ship and called the Speedwell that got renamed the Hancock, and it's part of George Washington's original Navy. And I brought this on a meeting with 2 important persons, a military advisor to President Zelensky, and Roland Sieber as well, a second person. And I explained on our first real trip to Ukraine, to Kyiv, that when the man who made these silver spoons leased his ship to George Washington in the Continental Congress to capture gunpowder, because they didn't have enough gunpowder at the beginning to even consider even thinking about winning a revolution. You Rev 250 this year. And so I said, this reminds me of your 3-day survival when you should have been gone. They said, we survived with like 250, I forget what is it, a HIMAR or something, but men intercepted the Russian tanks on the road to Kyiv, much at the cost of their own lives, as memorials there today. But with very little, seemingly impossible, they stopped the Russian incursion into Kyiv, and they're still here today. And I showed this to them because I wanted them to, I just wanted a show and tell item. And they told me that's a connection for us. George Washington should have been hanged because he should have been unsuccessful because they didn't have enough gunpowder for a revolution. They didn't have enough for a month.
And yet, here we are.
And here we are. And you know what? Here is Ukraine.
Oh, that is so good. I'm glad we got in that story. But thank you for these 2 shows, Kenneth. And well, maybe after you go again, we'll have you back again at some point.
I would love to.
Still standing with Ukraine. And for Russell and I, thank you for watching. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and the little bell that tells you that when we're posting something new. Thank you for watching.
Slava Ukraina.
Heroam Slava.
And that means glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes.